Hey Tech Journey family, Atia here. I'm so excited to see you guys. You're in for an amazing treat. Today we're going to be interviewing Amani Bird. She is a UX researcher as well as a mentor. So she has helped 100 people break into tech. I'm excited about hearing from her. For those of you who are not aware, Chorus Careers is now offering a UX UI class. So for anyone who's interested in design, user experience, user interface, sign up today. We're really excited about today's interview. She's going to give us a little bit more information, exactly what she does day to day and what you can experience in this role. Stay tuned. So Amani, if you can, before we get started, if you can just let our community know a little bit more about yourself. What made you want to transition into UX researcher? And if you can let us a little bit know about your career background and just fill us in on that.
Sure thing. So I actually went to business school at Howard University.
Okay.
And after that, I went into consulting at Accenture. So I started off actually with a market research project, which was for the Japanese government. So that was my first official research project outside of, college internships and things like that. So from there, I actually went into tech and I was in product management for a while.
Okay.
Of course, starting off as an analyst and then kind of working my way up to a product owner. And while I did like it, I found myself kind of leaning towards the UX side of things in my work. And I found that that was really where I was more passionate.
Okay.
So at the very beginning of the pandemic, I did my boot camp and then I did the official transition and went from huge mega corporation to a small 150 employee operation. So that
wow. So you did a tech boot camp. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What that was like?
Yes. So I did Springboard. It's a design boot camp. I actually don't know about many boot camps, of the same length, the kind of 9-month boot camps for research. So I did do it for design. So I did a pay-as-you-go plan to save some money. So I paid for 8 out of the 9 months.
Okay. Well, that's smart. We both did. Everyone knows we did Course Careers. So we did that tech boot camp, and Course Careers actually now does have an UX design course for those of you who are interested in it. So if you could just tell us a little bit more, just for myself and people who are watching, what is a UX researcher?
Sure. So the technical definition of the UX research role is to uncover the user behaviors, their needs and motivations. Okay. So that they can make the product more intuitive and more enjoyable for the end user. But on top of that, I feel that the UX researcher is an advocate for the user throughout the organization. They're a champion for the user, and it's their job to bring the user into different conversations and to encourage empathy with the users throughout the organization.
Why would someone consider this as a career?
Okay, so I think UX research could be a good fit for you if you're a people person. You spend a lot of time talking to customers, non-customers, different stakeholders, of course. You definitely need to be organized in terms of people being able to go back and reference your research, even if it was done, a year or two ago. And I also think a strong background in tech is helpful, but not necessary. I think it really helps you to fully understand, what's coming later on in the process. And of course, all UX professionals know that sometimes there's a misconception that all the UX is done up front and then it just gets passed on. But actually, a lot of times it's a cycle. So if you have, a strong background in tech and just the product development lifecycle, then that will take you very far as well.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just kind of curious about this. Like, when can you explain for our people, like, what does the UX actually stand for? And like, what does that in itself even mean?
So UX is user experience, but there's user researchers, UX researchers. I'm not sure that there's really a difference between the two. Okay. Technically, I'm a senior UX researcher. So it's everything about the user's experience in a product. So all the way from onboarding or first landing on a page through, whatever the task is at hand. So every aspect of that user's experience would fall under UX. And of course, project by project, you would focus on certain aspects of the user's experience.
Okay. So that kind of will lead into our next question. If you can just give us like a day to day, like what does your job look like? First of all, do you work from home or are you in an office?
Yes, I work from home,
Okay.
100% remote. My
Okay.
company is based in Austin. We were doing in-person events at first, but now
Mhm.
it's pretty much fully remote,
Okay. So
which I
what
like.
does a day like day to day in Amani's role look like?
Sure. So one of the reasons why I like this role is that the day-to-day is pretty different. It depends where you are in a project, how many projects you're working on, that kind of thing. So you could be doing anything from actually conducting research, which could mean, speaking with people. It could mean, running some type of test online. You could also be doing data analysis. You could be reviewing previously recorded, maybe unmoderated videos and kind of taking notes from that. And you could also be prepping a presentation, to share work that you've done with stakeholders, wrapping up a persona. Every day really is different. So that's part of the reason why I like the role.
Okay, awesome. So no, you sound very passionate about it. I can definitely tell talking to you, you love your job, but I'm sure as with any job, there are pros and there are cons.
Mhm.
There are things people like and dislike about their job. So if you could just give us a little inside scoop, if you can give us some pros and some cons specifically about your role.
Sure. So I would say pros, like I mentioned, it's not very mundane. I find that the days are pretty different,
Okay.
and there's a lot of different, methodologies that you can explore to kind of expand your arsenal, and even have differentiation in that way as well.
Okay.
Another pro, I talk to a lot of different types of people. I find that to be a pro. And then, outside of work, like when I was looking for work, I was doing kind of side projects. I was working with people from all over the world. I was interviewing people from all over the world. So
Wow.
I really loved that. And you can just, learn so many different things.
Yeah.
And then for cons, I would say, which I kind of touched on as well, is sometimes, this depends on the organization, but sometimes there is difficulty getting stakeholders, PMs, other people to reference back to your research. Now, when you first do, like, I call them a wrap-up call,
Mhm.
goes over well. I've never had any issues with the wrap-up call, and then we're all on the same page, and they
Mhm.
might reference it then. But let's say 6 months later, they're doing an enhancement, and
Mm.
then you're probably going to have a hard time getting them to reference back to your old work. So
Okay.
that's why I stress organization so much. I
Mm.
also do some mentoring as well. So I always stress organization
Oh, wow.
because it's just, you want to eliminate that risk as much as possible, that you'll do all this work and then people aren't looking back at it. So
Mm.
organization is so important because that can be a con depending on your company.
Okay, now that's great. Now, this is a side note because you threw this out there. It wasn't in my notes to ask, but you're a mentor.
Yes.
So that is awesome. So can you tell us a little bit more about, what does that entail? What does that look like? How did you get into mentoring?
Yeah.
And, and just fill us in on that. We'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So I mentor an ADP list, and when I was completing my boot camp, I'm not sure during COVID and how the job market is, but they used to
Mhm.
have the job guarantee for a lot of these boot camps. So part of keeping that guarantee was you had to meet with X amount of people per week. You had to connect with X amount of people on LinkedIn. So that's when I
Right.
actually first started using ADP list as a mentee.
Okay. Okay.
So, in the last maybe 6 months or so, I
Mhm.
joined ADP list
Mhm.
to just help people looking to get into UX research. So I've been doing
Mm.
that. I think I hit my 100th milestone. So I've been doing quite a bit.
Wow. So that means you've helped 100 people get in?
Yeah, well, I've had some repeats. So
Wow,
a
but
little less than 100.
still,
Yeah. Yeah.
Amani,
Mhm.
that is huge.
Yes. Yes.
So not only did you break into tech, but now you have helped 100 people, some repeats, but you have helped many people also break in. That's huge. Now, do you encourage people to go specifically through the boot camp you do? Does it matter if people do a boot camp? Um,
So I think it depends. To me, and this is kind of a hard truth that I have to give to some of my mentees as well. I don't think just a boot camp is enough.
okay.
Now, back a few years ago when it wasn't as popular, it might have been enough to get like a junior design role, and it still might
Mhm.
be for
Mhm.
design. But for UX research and design, generally speaking, I think it's not, that alone is not enough. Okay. So in terms of the boot camps and which ones are better, I think the ones that are better are the ones that have a real life client, because even though if you're just doing a boot camp, at least you have a real world project that you can say, I did this. But I recommend that people offer their services for cheap or free if they can afford it, so that they can have some real life experience. Because I don't think just a boot camp, as cutthroat as the job market is now, I don't think a boot camp is enough. So I always encourage, finding real clients and having real projects that you could showcase. So any boot camp that gives you that, I think, is a good one.
Awesome. So if people are watching, and I'm sure there are, and they want to reach out to you, maybe they want you to help mentor them and get them in, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
For sure. So they can find me on ADP lists, but I have a post on my LinkedIn that links to the ADP list. So they can also find me that way.
Well, we'll be sure to put your LinkedIn information in the description. So that way, guys, if you're watching, you can always go back, reach out to Amani. She's helped 100 people break into tech. That is huge. So can I ask you, now we're just kind of off the cuff. I just want to ask one last question before we wrap up. Sure. So right now, a lot of people, especially, in the African-American community, are realizing that tech is like, this is where it's at. This is a very popular industry to try to break into. And you have many people that are just trying to break into tech. My husband and I, our story. I started off, I was actually a stay-at-home mom. My husband was in car sales. And together we did course careers and decided we need to break in. We both work. Well, now I'm an SDR. He's an account executive, so he's doing really well. And we both really enjoy what we do. So what would you say, what would be your number one piece of advice for someone who wants to break into tech? What does that look like? What should they do?
I would say first is to get that foundational knowledge, which you can do through a boot camp, a degree as well. But boot camp plus some experience, I think, is enough. Okay. I would also say to be persistent. And I've talked to not only mentees, but also friends about this when they ask me how I, switched into this role. And I tell them I applied to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of roles. Now, let's say you hear back from 1%. That means you need to apply to a whole bunch of jobs. Okay. Exactly. So I keep telling people to be persistent. And I broke down the math to one of my friends and encouraged her, and she found a new job, but she was getting really discouraged. And I'm like, well, I was applying to at least 50 jobs a week, and it took me months. So you have to be persistent. You can't just, after the first couple of weeks, you don't find anything, you just give up. You have to be persistent. You have to constantly work on your skills, even after you got a job. And if you work in UX, you have to consistently be updating your portfolio. And myself, and I'm sure many other UX professionals have had that issue where you get a job and you don't update your portfolio. But you need to be constantly doing it. So I would just say having that kind of attitude of constantly learning will help you, not only during your job search and improving your LinkedIn and all that, but also once you are in tech. So.
Awesome. Amani, I couldn't have said it better myself. We've had so many conversations with people, and it's like, it's not going to be a quick process. And I love what you said. Even after you get the job, it's still going to be work. And that's exactly what we realized. It's going to take a lot of persistence, tenacity, grit, just to land the job. And it doesn't stop there.
Right.
Once you start working, now it's that same tenacity, that same grit, that same persistence that you use to land the job. You're going to need that to see you through the entire job. And then if you want to be promoted, no one wants to just stay in the entry level job.
Exactly.
That's going to take a lot of persistence. That's going to take tenacity, grit. So the skills that you have acquired to land the job, those are the same skills you're going to need to maintain it and to grow and to have the career advancement. So we appreciate you sharing that. Is there anything you want to leave with our guide community before we hop off?
I would just say there's a space in tech for everyone who, is persistent, and this is really something that is important to them. So sign up for a time with me if you like, and I can help you get on the right path. But yeah, there is space for all of us. So just work on your craft, and we could all be here together successful. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amani. Thank you so much for all of your tips. Thank you for being available for anyone that wants to reach out. If you have questions about UX design, or maybe if you want to do UX research, as I mentioned, Course Careers does have a new track for those of you who are interested in that. You can always visit the Course Careers website, and you can always holler at Amani. She's helped 100 people break into tech. I'm sure she wouldn't mind helping you too. Thank you so much for your time, Amani.
thank you. Have a great one.